Welcome to the next installment of How I Did It, where I'm going to be breaking down today how I made my business work for me and ultimately became a much happier, more fulfilled, more content business owner. This one feels particularly relevant because it's actually a journey I've been on this year. I haven't spoken about it a huge amount, partly because I'm always one to share transparently and bring you on the journey with me, but I always want to make sure I do it with hindsight in a way that is genuinely helpful rather than just like spewing my brain and my thoughts at you. Although maybe sometimes that's what these episodes feel like anyway, I don't know. But I want to talk more about this because it's been a massive focus for me this year. And I'm definitely on the other side of it, or just really starting to see the benefits of this work now. And I want to bring you on this journey with me as to what's happened so far. Also, if you're listening to this episode the week that it comes out, this is your final opportunity to join On It 2026 at the early bird price. So speaking of working on your business, how did I end up feeling better as a business owner? Or I should say, right now, I'm feeling great as a business owner. How did I get here? Well, the context to this begins actually around this time last year, where I realized I wasn't feeling very happy in my business. I don't want that to come across as super doom and gloom or moany, because if you'd have asked me at the time, I would have been like, yeah, look, I'm good. But like, good isn't the aim, right? Like when you're working as hard as you do as a business owner, taking the risks, like having this kind of big responsibility and putting yourself through a lot, let's be honest. We do to run a business. You deserve to feel better than good, and you deserve to feel better than good on a regular basis. I remember this time last year just starting to get a sense that my business wasn't really working for me. Now, that's not the first time I've had that realization. I've been working for myself for 9, probably almost 10, maybe even over 10 years now. I don't know. I quit school early, started a business. It's all I've ever known. And over that period, there's been a lot of moments where I've realized that I needed to change my business to work better for me. You know, as human beings, we are constantly evolving. What we want, what we need, how we feel, who we are, that's always changing. So I don't believe it's ever a one-time thing where we're like, oh my gosh, my business isn't working for me. I need to make all these changes and then it'll be perfect forever. This has happened before. So I've had moments before, you know, particularly when I was doing one-to-one full time, I was like, ooh, this isn't quite working for me anymore. I want a bit more diversity. I want a bit more variety. That was one realization I had quite a few years ago. I've had multiple moments over the years of going, right, this isn't quite working for me. How do I make it work for me? And this time last year, I really begun to get that feeling again. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't quite know what I was feeling or why, and I definitely had to give it some space. But it was actually when I was back in therapy towards the end of last year that I started to have space to unpack this. At the time, I was planning small business, and you might have seen me announce recently that small business is not coming back. For the last 4 years, I've hosted Christmas parties for business owners. I'm very proud of that business and that project, but this will help you understand why I've changed it, because I was deep in the planning mode for those 3 events, and I just wasn't feeling it. I didn't feel as passionate as I had in previous years. I didn't feel as excited as I wanted to about the project. And because of that, just in general, you know, putting in the amount of work and self-discipline and risk involved in putting on so many events was just feeling really hard. I was feeling quite demotivated, quite disconnected. And on a whole, my workload wasn't feeling very sustainable or joyful to me. There were also some experiences I'd had in the summer around my book launch, which I think really added to that. I am so proud of my book being published. I did a recent episode all about how I got a book deal, so you can go and have a listen to that one if you want to learn more about that. But one of the biggest mistakes that I made was going on what can only be described as the most full-on book promotion marathon for about 6 weeks after my book came out. I loved a lot of that book promotion marathon, informally named, but it definitely featured quite unsustainable working routines for me. And there were moments and things that I did in that period that just didn't feel good. I didn't leave, you know, that session or event or whatever it might be, or that opportunity feeling like it was the right thing to do. And in general, I was just starting to feel quite disconnected, perhaps a little bit burnt out, but not so much physically, more just mentally, just not really feeling like I was doing things I wanted to do. And to kind of summarize it, what I realized at the end of last year was that I wasn't necessarily running the business that I wanted to run. I was doing things that maybe I felt like I should do, things that I just could do. Like I was just kind of saying yes to things. And if it made sense or made enough sense, going for it. And I'm proud of that mindset. I'm a messy action taker. I learn best by doing. I don't regret anything. But I definitely realized at the end of last year, like I need to make some changes. I need to make some changes to ensure that my business really works for me. And what I mean by that and what I meant by that in this specific realization was I want to be doing work that really aligns for me. I want to feel really excited about and proud of the work I'm committing to. I want to look in my diary and feel like, yes, that is what I want. That feels intentional, that feels aligned. I don't want to dread anything. Now, don't get me wrong, I have realistic expectations. I'm running a business. At the end of the day, it's going to feel like a job at times, but I hope you get what I mean here. I just wanted things to feel better, to do less that maybe felt misaligned or like I had to kind of force myself to do it. I wanted to feel immensely proud of all of the things that I was doing. And amidst that, I also just wanted to be working a bit less with a bit more freedom, a bit more flexibility in my workload, and ultimately have more autonomy. You know, we work hard as business owners for flexibility, yet often we don't harness it. And I definitely felt that towards the end of last year. I was like, I'm not getting as many perks from this as I want to. Now, fast forward to today, even speaking about that feels quite hard for me because I just can't really remember those feelings that well because my business feels so different now. I am sat here running a business that I absolutely love, that feels really fulfilling, really aligned. I'm doing the things that are most important and relevant for me. I don't dread doing things. There's still days, obviously, where I'm like, okay, come on, G myself up. But all of the things I'm saying yes to are aligned for me. And the biggest thing that I think that's changed is my workload looks completely different. I have so much more flexibility. Work is pretty much optional for me on a Friday. I can do a 4-day week if I want to. I'm harnessing the flexibility that running a business gives me. I'm paying myself more. And all of those things combined mean that I feel very happy as a business owner. I'm sat here feeling really, really good. And I want to share with you what has happened over the last 12 months for that to take place and for that to change. Because as I'm trying to reiterate in all of these episodes, the right growth, like growth that feels genuinely exciting and aligned, is not accidental. Some things in business may feel a bit random or accidental, or like they just kind of happened. But any change, which is like really meaningful and aligned for you, takes intentional action. It's not by accident. And whilst over the last 12 months, it has been quite a long and slow and non-linear at times process, I have been the one that's created that shift that has led me to be sat here today feeling really good and content as a business owner. So I would say there are 3 things that have really led to that change over the last year. The first one that I've kind of touched on already is staying connected to how I'm feeling. If you are constantly in the day-to-day, in your business, head down, busy, 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 you are likely not going to have many opportunities to step back and have genuine reflection. I know that when you're in the business, everything can feel so consuming. Someone asks you, how are you? And you're like, yeah, good, fine, busy, cool. But I'm talking here about genuine reflection, asking yourself the important questions like, how am I feeling as a business owner right now? Am I pleased with what my day-to-day is looking and feeling like? One of my favorite questions, I ask people this in my program On It quite often, is if nothing changed, in 6 months' time, what would you be annoyed about? Like if nothing changed and your business looked and felt the same in 6 months, what about that would irritate you? What would your future self be frustrated hadn't it improved? Those kind of questions, they're what help us to realize what our vision is, because when we know how we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, we can then make the changes, set the vision that's going to help us move forwards. It was by having moments of reflection and regularly, when I say regularly, I try to do this monthly. That's why On It is 1 session a month, because I think we want to bring ourselves back to that reflection as frequently as we can, asking yourself these kind of questions. You know, I check in each month and like, right, how am I doing in my business? How am I feeling? Has the last month reflected what I really want? I'm connected to what I'm feeling and thinking so that when there's changes or when those answers start to maybe get a little bit less positive, I can be aware of that. It wasn't a light bulb moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm unfulfilled as a business owner. I need to change my workload and have more flexibility and enjoy this more. I can say that now, but that was all of these micro moments of reflection and realization and clarity. I spoke about in a previous episode about how our business is full of clarity, but only if we stop to actually pick up the lessons. So that is the first thing that really helped me here, was realizing how I felt. If you don't know what you're feeling and thinking, you can't make any changes to improve or change that. The second thing that really helped me, and this is what I did once I'd realized, right, things need to change, is I connected to my vision. And the word my in there is bold, underlined, in italics, in red. Because I needed to connect. And when you're making changes to your business for you, you need to connect to your vision as the business owner. I was in a bit of a state this time last year of maybe thinking a bit more about what other people wanted from my business, other people's vision, or the vision that my peers, my competitors had. And in order to make my business work better for me, what I needed to do was put the blinkers on and connect to my vision. In On It, at the start of the year, we do a load of exercises around your vision. Things like, what is your internal why? How do you want your business to serve you? What does running a business do for you? How do you make it worth it? What do you want from your business? It's questions that people often will say in the chat box, like, oh God, I've never thought about this before. This feels quite selfish. This feels different. I'm always just thinking about what I want to do for others. But you've got to have a business work for you if it's going to do anything for anyone else on a long-term basis. And here's why it's important that we ask ourselves these questions, especially regularly, because the answers change. 2 or 3 years ago, my answer to what do I want my business to do for me were different. 2 or 3 years ago, I would have answered those questions differently because I was a different person. That's why when I realized, my business isn't quite working for me, I didn't beat myself up. I was just like, looks like I've changed. Looks like I need and want something different now. My past self didn't give a flying fadoodle about 4-day work weeks. My current self does. So I had to reconnect to my vision and work out maybe where things had changed slightly and what I really wanted. I completed the exercises that we do in On It around what your personal definition of success is. And I gave myself space and permission. Permission's really key here to connect to that. I reminded myself it's not selfish. It's not bad for the business. If anything, it's super strategic for me to have my personal vision and to work towards that. So that's the second thing I did, is I connected to my vision. And if the concept of that feels completely alien and difficult for you, then this is your reminder to think about what your vision is. And if you want the structure and space to do that easily, then On It is for you. The third thing that I then did, which I think is a byproduct of working on your business, is I remembered that I was in control and I acted like it. When you are working in your business, you are in employee mode, right? You're doing the doing. We need to work in our businesses to make money, to keep things running. But if you work in your business and never work on it, you create this kind of employee mindset where you feel like things are happening to you. You feel like you don't have control, and you start to play a very passive role in your business's growth. On the flip side of that, when you work on your business, you're stepping into CEO mode, right? You're stepping into the role of leader in your business. You are playing then an active role in your growth. And when you're working on your business, what you're remembering and doing is that you have control. And when you're working on your business, what you're remembering is that you have control, because you do. If you run a business, you have so much more control and autonomy over your workload, your happiness, your outcomes, your reality than you probably think. And when you work on your business, you build that muscle where you really believe that you're in control and you act like it. It's one thing to know that you're in control, but actually showing up as that CEO, as that leader, that's what really then creates the change. Knowing that I wanted my business to serve me differently, knowing what that vision was, that was step 1. But step 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and all the rest was the implementation of that, was the on the business work around changing the work I was doing, what I was selling, how I was delivering things, how my life and schedule was structured. That is what then created the change. That is what then made this vision of what I wanted come into reality. And that was those regular habits of working on my business, realizing I was in control and acting with that control. When you're working on your business, you're really just stepping into the role of leader and saying, hey, I'm leading this thing. I want it to go here, and therefore I'm going to do these things in order to get it there. It was not an overnight change, right? I'm here 12 months later telling you that I feel a lot better in my business. And that's 12 months of bitty action steps, planting lots of seeds, experimentation, reflection, sometimes feeling like I wasn't making progress, but staying at it. That is such a key piece of the process. So that is how, over the last 12 months, I have made my business work so much better for me. And the reason that I can sit here and very proudly say that I love running my business, I have great flexibility, and I feel that my business is really serving me as much as it is serving others. This, I find, is one of the biggest reasons that people work with me and join on it, is because they'll say, hey, I'm making money, it's going well, but it's not working for me. It's not feeling like it's having the benefits that I want it to. I don't have the flexibility. I'm not doing the work I enjoy. I want to take control and make it work better for me. If this is resonating, please know that you are not alone. And if you want to make those changes in 2026, then On It is going to be the space to do that. We're going to do the exercises in January around your vision so that you know what you want and you're chasing a vision that's aligned for you, not just growth at any cost. And we'll have these checkpoints every month where we go, right, how are you chipping away at that? What are you going to do now? How can we shift your business model and make those kind of decisions and changes that's going to get you to that vision that you have? You deserve a business that works for you. But I will say the path to making a business work for you can at times feel pretty non-linear and pretty difficult. But that's where, when you have structure, when you have support, it becomes a whole lot easier. I really hope you've enjoyed this slightly more personal, I think, installment of this series. If you have any feedback, any thoughts, I'm always open. The link in the show notes will allow you to find out more about On It and save your space if it feels like a fit for you. And I'll be back in your ears very soon.